Perez. Walcott makes a run ahead of it. Bergkamp suddenly changed pace through the centre. It's Bergkamp! That's magnificent! The move, and then this, which left Dabby's ass totally stranded.
Hello and welcome to Bergkamp Wonderland. We are still an Arsenal podcast. This is our 100th podcast in the last 3 or 4 days, where it feels like it. Gav's pulled a sickie, so he's not going to be here with us tonight, and there's not a single person who's going to complain about that. I had actually asked Ellis and Dave before Gav pulled out. So first of all, it's Dave Segar, who is the one of the most famous Arsenal book writers, authors, whichever way around you want to call it. I'm doing 100 things at once, and I was actually honoured to be part of his last book. So Dave, hello, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Danny. I'm very well. I was honoured to have you as part of my last book. Is the right way of looking at it.
Yeah, didn't you say like most of the interviews went for about an hour, and mine was like 2 hours because I wouldn't shut up.
I was trying to get rid of you. Yeah.
Good. Have you got any books planned for the future?
I've just finished writing a section of a chapter of a new book. Yes, before I was. Yeah, no, it's. I think a few people know about it. If you remember, the third book was Arsenal's Double Double, which was like a Cat in the Hat style comedic, rhyming tribute to those 2 seasons. And the intention.
The one with Matt Lucas and that lot in.
No, that's the Supporting Arsenal's a Funny Old Game. No, I just did basically every game of 97, 98 and 2001, 2002 was described, in rhyming couplets from start to finish. Not a single goal missed. Everything rhymed and poorly drawn Arsenal did all the artwork for it, which came out in 2018. So the sequel to that is nearly complete, which is Double Double to Invincible. So basically, it's the complete history of the Invincible season again. In poetry, rhyming couplets with poorly drawn Arsenal's images to accompany the book. So that will come out for the 20th anniversary at the start of the season, probably in September. So
very good.
Book number 5.
And you also did Geordie Armstrong on the Wing, which I have. I've got the Arsenal Double Double. I've got the Arsenal for Everyone. I might have 2 of those. And the one I don't have is Supporting Arsenal is a Funny Old Game. Is that the only ones? I say only. I've written nothing in my life. Have you only done 4 that we know of?
Yes, this will be the 5th. Yeah. Now the Supporting Arsenal's Funny Old Game is that was the 2nd book.
Yeah, that's good. It's lovely. So if anybody wants to go and get them, don't go to Amazon. Go to legendspublishing.net and then go and have a look for Dave's books there. And also,
the last 2 you can actually get from Arsenal. From the Arsenal shop.
Very good. Well, if you're at the game, go to the shop and buy them.
Not that I go into the armory and look every week or anything, but
you should do go in there.
I'm hoping they're not going to be there. That they still are there.
You should just go in there and start signing them, and they go, "What are you doing?" You go, "Don't you know I am?"
I've never said that.
And our part-timer at ABW, Jock, Dan Betts, his one's there as well, Almost Invincible. And it's the 30th anniversary shiny edition as well. I've got that, but I haven't got the shiny edition. So if you want to buy stuff for an Arsenal fan, just go to Legends Publishing and go and buy everything. That'd be very good. Also, with me tonight, as my thing falls out my ear, is Ellis. Hello, Treacle.
Hello. Good to finally be back. Probably one of our best seasons, and the podcast I decided to come back on. We've been on 3 straight draws, so coincidence.
You've got about 50 kids now, though, haven't you? You keep having more.
I've had 1, and she's a handful.
Same kind of
she's
thing,
in bed and asleep at the moment, so fingers crossed she stays that way.
Nobody talk loud. How have you been? I mean, I know how you've been because you're in all the WhatsApp groups, but tell the people how you've been. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Just a very busy life. Moved house into, you probably can't quite see it behind me, an old lady's house where every single wall, ceiling, surface, other than the floor, is covered in Artex and Magnolia. Yes, Dave. So it's been a lot of work trying to sort that out, but we'll get there slowly.
That's a bugger to get off, isn't it? Bugger to get off the walls, isn't it?
It is indeed. But
Artex.
Yeah. We'll have it looking nicer, and next time I come on a pod, hopefully you won't be looking at that horrible thing behind me.
You've got a podcasting shed, haven't you, that you're going to use?
my plan is to convert the shed into a man cave that will be able to be my own little section where I can do a podcast out of the way. But again, I think that's very far off on the list of priorities at the moment.
Yes, well, they leave home very quickly, and then next thing you know, they're globetrotting around the world and quitting their job, which is what my one has decided to do. Right, let's have a. We are going to talk about the FA Youth Cup final. I'm not sure if it's one or two legs because this one's been held at the Emirates. It's when we started, it was 3-1 West Ham. It's now 4-1 West Ham with 6 minutes to go. So, have either of you been keeping an eye on the under-18s or the under-21s as they've changed it this season? That's a no from Dave.
Not going to matches, but obviously I follow the results and I follow,
Oh, that's all I do.
I follow Jack on social media, which is always entertaining. It's good to see him back at the club and doing well, regardless of what happens tonight.
He was the one player that I wanted to, out of all the ones that have, I don't know, saying he's failed but hasn't lived up to his full expectation. He is the one that I wanted to do it the more than anybody else because everybody loves Jack. Mm. And if you don't love Jack, then I question your loyalty to the club. But do you think he's going to make it as a manager?
Well, who knows? I'll put it this way: I'd say he's working in a pretty good environment right now. I think he said himself that when he played with Arteta, he knew that Arteta was going to be a great coach. And I'm sure, other than wanting to come back to Arsenal, I'm sure one of the reasons he wanted to come back now straight away and drew a close on his playing career, probably slightly prematurely, was because he could work in that environment with Arteta's setup. So yeah, I think he's got every chance.
Yeah, there's been quite a few players over the years that have just given up football at an early age. There was David Bentley, another one, who said, I had contract offers. I'm sure Jack had contract offers for other places. But at some point, you just lose your love for the game and don't want to play it anymore.
I just actually wrote something about David Bentley because, believe it or not, I'm just writing about the 36th game in the Invincible season. And it was the 1-1 draw with Portsmouth, which everyone remembers for Reyes finally breaking his league duck for Arsenal. And sort of preserving the unbeaten run. But David Bentley made his one and only league appearance for Arsenal in that game against Portsmouth in the 36th game of a 38-game unbeaten season.
Was it a shirt number 52? I vaguely remember something like that.
That was Bentley. That was Bentner.
Bentner was 52. Yeah. I remember when Cesc came on in the League Cup, he was officially shirt number 54, possibly against Hartlepool. I think that might have been the game that I met Bergkamp at, and Bergkamp to this day still hasn't stopped talking about it. I mean, sometimes it's quite annoying. Ellis, what do you think about super Jackie Wilshere? Do you want him to have a future as a manager? Do you think he'll do it?
I hope so. I think obviously his playing career was blighted with injuries, and unfortunately saw him end his career early. But not all players make good coaches, but sometimes not players that haven't really had the most outstanding player careers go on to make quite good coaches, Pep Guardiola, Arteta, and to name a few more. I can't really think off the top of my head now, but yeah, hopefully
Eddie Howe.
Hopefully, yeah, like he's starting at a good sort of structure. He's in, like Dave said, Arsenal has been, I think, revitalised from every aspect, not just the first team by Arteta and what they've done with the club. And he's in the best environment to sort of progress and hopefully, yeah, he will go far and hopefully become a good manager. But we'll have to wait and see, really.
Well, he's working with Per as well, which is obviously
a
good mentor to have, I would have thought.
I was saying to Gav a couple of weeks ago, Ellis, that do you remember the days in the early ABW days when we used to go, we just want ex-Arsenal players at the club. We haven't got any. We need some representation at the club. We've now got Etu, which is a combination of Arteta and Edu. And we've got Per and we've got Jack. And I think there was a young man who was a striker who he's now back at the club. He was playing non-league for a while. I think he might have played for Southend. Can't remember his name, but he's back at the club. You go and have a look at all the people working at the club. They've got quite a few ex-Gooners there. And I think that does help because they understand what it's like to be an Arsenal fan and they have the same expectations as we do. And I love it. Yeah,
I probably think when we were saying that, or when people were saying that, they'll probably think along the lines of Vieira and Henry and probably the Invincibles. I doubt many people envisaged Arteta coming back, revolutionising the club. And Dave mentioned Bergkamp further down and Jack Wilshere also in there. So It's good. They're Arsenal men. They clearly know, and I think both when Saka and Arteta came as players, obviously they were captain and vice captain, so they clearly know the values of the club, and they're obviously doing good things now.
Yeah, I do think Arteta knew quite early on, when he lost his pace a little bit, and he was doing his badges in that last season when he was still a player and club captain, wasn't he? And I think most people you talk to who were around the squad at that time, and you read interviews or listen to interviews, I think most people had a pretty good inkling that Arteta was going to be a good coach. And I think Wenger said that, and obviously then going to work with Pep, not too many finer people to learn from, I wouldn't have thought.
West Ham are 5-1 now. Scored from the corner.
I don't think we need to talk about that anymore.
It's nice to see that the FA, with all the billions they get every year, can't get a YouTube stream to work. The one we're doing at the moment is better quality, which is an absolute shame. Lots of the usual people in there. Si's telling people to click thumbs up. That's very nice. Formerly known as Danny Carbassian was our American scout for a long time. Yes, he was, and he actually wrote a book, didn't he, about his career? And that's one book I don't have. I mean, there's loads of them. But there's quite a few I don't have.
Well, Steve Morrow was out there for a long time as well, wasn't he, for Arsenal?
He was Dallas, wasn't he? Yeah. Right. Well, so we've done that. It's another little bit of something you don't usually. We used to talk about it in the old days. How the ladies are getting on. It's now back on trend, which is good for those. But Ellis, do you watch any of the ladies' games? Because at the moment we're in the Champions League semi-final and we're up against Wolfsburg. Went there 2-0 down at one point, ended up 2-2. So the second leg's going to be at the Emirates. Do you watch any of it?
I barely get enough time to watch the Arsenal men's team, to be fair, but occasionally when it's on team, I'll flick it on. I watched part of the United game, unfortunately. I think I'm based just a bad luck charm. We started to we're losing tonight in the Youth Cup when I'm on the podcast. I come on the podcast, we've drawn 3 times, and then every time I've watched Arsenal ladies, they've lost the game or someone's been drastically injured, which I think has been the story of the ladies' season, haven't they? A lot of the big players have been hit with long-time injuries.
I think, Ellis, that is why this particular result in Wolfsburg was so impressive. Because, I mean, Wolfsburg are a very strong, very physical team. And Arsenal, as you say, were without probably their 4 best players, without Beth Mead and Mia Dima. And recently, obviously, we lost the captain as well. Not with Kim Little, we've lost the captain, and then the England captain, Leah Williamson. So you've lost 4 great players there, and there were other players who didn't go till Germany. 2-0 down inside the first 20 minutes. To come back and drew 2-2 was a magnificent result. Certainly, I've bought tickets for the return leg, which I'm for my daughters. They're both going, and they've already sold about 40,000 tickets, I believe, last time I looked. So it's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. And unfortunately, we're not going to get any of those players back, but there will be a few other players back in. And then Katie McCabe, though, is just the Irish. I mean, just sensational in that game. So she was just everywhere. But all in all, just an incredible achievement to come back, against the odds. And I think there's more chance of them winning the European trophy than actually winning the league in the UK, because last year was a 2-horse race with Chelsea. This year, Man City and Man United are both very strong. It's a very, very competitive league. And our injuries have cost us. But yeah, no, it's been very impressive. I watched it. I really enjoyed it.
I'm still not over Van der Donk leaving. She was my favourite player. And it was Maitland-Niles. Did she have to stop?
The way you said that was vaguely rude. The way you she was my favourite player. I'm glad the audience can't see your hands at this point.
Well, she played in the kind of Bergkamp position, didn't she? And I think she's Dutch as well, is she? Yeah, with a name like that, of course she's going to be. And I just like the way that she would work wonders and for Maitland and set up so many goals and just be a great player in that 10 position. I'm just biased to anyone who plays that position.
Strangely, Vivian sort of moved back with Blackstenius playing up front, so she's sort of moved back into the Bergkamp role this season before injury. And she's been so long playing as a sole striker, and now she's playing in sort of the withdrawal role, and she's adapted to that brilliantly as well.
Yeah, because she's an absolute
Dutch trait, obviously.
Hey?
It's a Dutch trait, obviously.
It is, and the England manager is Dutch as well, isn't she?
Yeah,
Swedish.
No, she's Dutch.
Yeah. She's she won the European Championships with Holland, and then England poached her, which is wonderful. Yes,
I want to win the European Championship with England as well.
Yeah, that's quite an achievement. So good luck to the ladies for the rest of the season. And anyone look at the result. I mean, Lyon are one of the best teams in women's football, and they absolutely destroyed Lyon. Was it 6-1 they beat them? Magnificent. And that just shows what we can do, which is brilliant. Rudy says full time at the Emirates. West Ham won the Youth Cup 5-1. Well, I'm not going to talk about that ever again. All I can say is Jack Wilshere out. Want him gone in the morning. Let's talk a little bit about the last 3 games that the Arsenal have played, Dave, because we've dropped 6 points. We were 2-0 up, as you know, and then we played against the bottom team in the league who are absolutely rubbish, and they turned us inside out. What do you put that down to? That's a go. If you can answer that, let Arteta know. Put it on a postcard.
I mean, I do think you have. I do think the first 2 in the Southampton games are very different. I don't know. I don't know the first 2. I mean, obviously we started magnificently in both games. We were 2-0 up, in both games, and for some inexplicable reason, seemed to take our foot off the pedal. And it was a trait of early Arteta. It was certainly a trait last season. I didn't think we'd seen it as much this season. I mean, we have seen it sometimes where we almost feel like we've won the game, so we'll ease off slightly. And that was a mistake against Liverpool, obviously, because they're, despite their season, they're still a very good team. And I know most of Twitter and social media seems to be laying the blame firmly at Rob Holding's feet, which I think's, pointless and extremely unfair. But we are having to deal with injuries and playing players who definitely wouldn't be playing in the run-in. So it's unfortunate, but that's the manager's job to try and move things around. And I think I don't want to criticise Arteta because I back him fully and I never have, but I just look at some of the best managers over the years, and when you're faced with injuries, sometimes you just have to shuffle the pack slightly and maybe not play the same formation and not try and play exactly the same way when you haven't got the players who enable you to play that way. And that's what I put it down to. I put it down to just trying to sort of do exactly the same thing with Zinchenko and not play Tierney. And I'm not criticising Zinchenko, but sometimes, you just need to say, okay, we've got to compensate for a fact we've got a very, very good Premier League centre-back, but he's not Saliba. He's not as fast as Saliba. He doesn't do the same things as Saliba. So we have to shuffle the pack around that because that's where we are. And I'll be very interested to see whether that happens tomorrow.
Yeah, it is weird to think that we've done all but it's not the end of the world though, is it, Ellis? Because we've still only lost 3 Premier League games. Man City have lost 4. And I was looking up, if you've listened to the last few pods, you already know this stat. In the last 18 seasons, only twice have we scored more than the 77 Premier League goals that we've got at the moment. And I think we're going to be maybe with 6 games to go, we might even be able to break. I think 84 is the most we've scored. And even in the Invincible season, we only scored 72 league goals, Ellis. So are people making too much of a big deal over it all? And once you finish waffling about that, tell us what you think about why it's all gone wrong. Why the end is nigh.
To answer your first question, I think it's the way the results have come. Like, I think we're all quite guilty of doing it, looking ahead, looking at the fixtures, thinking, we might drop some points there, or that should be a easy win. I don't think anyone saw us dropping points to Southampton, or the way in which we did drop those points. West Ham, I think everyone probably would have put that as maybe not a comfortable win, but a win we should have got. And me personally, I don't know how everyone else was feeling about the trip to Anfield. I actually had that down as a loss in my head. I thought we haven't gone there after they did what they did to Manchester United. I thought they had a point to prove. And from watching the All or Nothing clip when Arteta played the Never Walk Alone through the speakers, I always thought he's got a bit of sort of personal problems of that stain that he may have sort of spread onto the players. But to go 2-0 up and then, I don't want to say throw it away, but that's what it feels like, doesn't it? It feels like you've thrown those 3 points away. Probably makes it more frustrating. If these 3 draws back to back were spread out along this run a bit more and weren't the case of having 2 of them having 2-0 leads and then throwing them away, we might feel a bit better about it. I think it's difficult, isn't it? We're 5 points clear. Granted, City have got 2 games in hand of us. It still is in our hands, but I think from the performances that we've seen and the drop off in our defensive capabilities since the Saliba and Tomiyasu injury, it's just made probably a lot of people rightly worried about the game tomorrow and what that's going to mean for our season. But in terms of where it's all gone wrong, again, if we knew that, someone needs to tell Arteta. But I think it probably is pressure. I know it's a buzzword at the moment, but it's a type of pressure that these young players other than Zinchenko and Jesus, haven't really felt before. And even Zinchenko and Jesus, to a certain extent, were fringe players in that Man City team that would constantly win the league. So I think if you're a fringe player coming on, there's a lot less pressure than being the starting 11 that I was always feeling that has to get those results, it has to perform, who was going to get it in the neck if they don't perform. I just think Arteta, he said that, is it phase 3 of phase 5? Is that what he's quoted in saying? So we're ahead of schedule according to Arteta's own plans. So maybe I just think the cracks are starting to show in terms of squad depth and just where this squad overall is at a maturity level and an experience level. And I can't really see it being anything else. The Ramsdale pass to go behind at Southampton, I think, plays a part in that. I think he's obviously experienced some forms of pressure previously, but a different type in relegation struggles. I think in a relegation battle, dropping points isn't really the issue. It's picking up the odd points here and there, whereas in a title, any form of drop points, whether it's 2 or 3, is just going to kill you, unfortunately. I think for me, it comes down to experience and just the pressure of being chased by this juggernaut, this robot that just picks up points that is Man City.
Yeah, I think on the experience point, Ellis, as well, not only missing Xhaka against Southampton, but substituting him with Vieira. I mean, I very rarely get on the back of Arsenal players, and I never will in the stadium, but I just don't see it. I cannot understand it on any level why Vieira started that game.
And
however talented he may be, that was not a game to put a slight inexperienced player in a game of that magnitude. I just didn't understand that, and it backfired horrendously in my view.
And surely the transfer of bringing Jorginho in January, surely that's the guy you bring in that situation. Yeah. I don't know the reasoning behind signing him, but I imagine it is probably his experience.
Yeah, and the same with Trossard. I mean, Trossard obviously ultimately came on there, and we looked at consider, and he's just one player of the month, and he's played in all sorts of positions, and he's technically sound. He never gives the ball away.
Yeah, I think we'd be fools to sit here and not criticise some of Arteta's decisions, because some of his decisions in the last 3 games, some of them have been bad. Not all of them. I'm not saying he's been awful or anything. And like I said, the same as you, I don't really want to be too critical, but some of the substitutions in those games, the way we invited pressure at Anfield by becoming a back 5, obviously starting Vieira over someone like Jorginho, he has made some mistakes. And again, that can be pressure attributed to him. He like the players, is a young, inexperienced manager.
And someone just said in the comments, probably Danny was going to pick up on this, but they made the observation quite correctly that Rob Holding's won 2 FA Cup finals playing in a back 3. And it does give you that solidity of having Holding with 2 other quicker centre backs, and we have got the players who can do that. And I've seen a lot of social media speculation that he might do it, and we know he has gone to a back 3 in games, so it's something he might look at tomorrow night. And I think Rob Holding would feel a lot more comfortable if he did, and I think the team might feel a lot more comfortable certainly going to the Etihad. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, we've seen, haven't we, with another team that has played a back 5 and how difficult it can be to play in a back 4 and concede 6 goals.
Yes. Dave, what do you think about the little things like, does Arteta take any notice of players and what they're capable of doing for their international teams? Now, Tierney plays the left-hand side of a back 3, centre-backs for Scotland. We've needed a centre-back. And Zinchenko is the captain of Ukraine by playing in the defensive midfield position, like a Xhaka, you may well know more than me do, but he plays roughly in the Xhaka position, but he likes to get forward. He spends half of the game in that position anyway. So can you see any reason why Arteta would go, no, Tierney, no, I'm not going to play you in a game when we need to defend. But games where I don't need you to defend, I'm going to play you. And then I know you can play centre-back, but we're going to play Bob Holding. I love Bob Holding, and I don't like it when people have a go at him. Unless you can do better, then maybe people shouldn't be slagging him off. But little things like that does make me wonder, why doesn't he make the most of this? Because so many people have been crying out for someone like Zinchenko in central midfield.
Well, I mean, my problem with Zinchenko, not problem, is that he seems reluctant to to change the formation when he does have to play Tierney instead of Zinchenko, which is I do have a general problem with that with Arteta. I mean, I don't have a problem with what he does with Zinchenko and this, the inverted fullback, and basically unless if we've got the ball, he's not a fullback. If we haven't got the ball, he is, and I've no problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is when Zinchenko's not available, he asks Tierney to play in exactly the same way as Zinchenko when he's a completely different player, and it makes Tierney look a lesser squad member, which he isn't. Let's remember 12 months ago, probably over 90% of the fan base wanted him to be our captain. And we probably lost Champions League football because of losing him and Partey at the end of last season. So this is not a bad footballer. As you say, he can play either left back, wing back, or left centre back. So my issue is that he doesn't allow Tierney to play to his strengths when he does play him. He asked him to do what Zinchenko's asked to do, and they're very, very different players. So there's two things on this. Firstly, if you look back at Man City's early championships, they were playing collar off and Clichy alternately depending on the opposition. Both good fullbacks, both had different attributes. One played more defensively, one played in more attacking. So depending on who they were playing, Pellegrini at the time or Mancini before him would play either or. So I don't really understand why we don't say, like he did with Tomiyasu early in the season, we're going to play this opposition. Let's put Tomiyasu at left back to do a job. I don't know why he doesn't let Tierney do that, because Tierney's obviously, miles ahead of Zinchenko as a one-on-one defender. So I do have an issue with that. But going back to the initial part of the question, it's like what we did with Nacho Monreal all those years ago. We played him at left centre-back in a back three. We won the FA Cup final, and we played him there a lot in the league. Because he's a great footballer and a great one-to-one defender, he did admirably well there and actually became a better left-back because of it. So I would be very, very happy if the lineup tomorrow night was Tierney, Gabriel, and Holding as a back three. I wouldn't have any issue with that at all. But equally, I wouldn't have had any issue if it was Tierney, Gabriel, and Ben White. I'd probably prefer that, and that's no slight on Rob Holding. But gives you more options if you do move to that formation, and as you say, it allows Tierney to play where he flourishes for Scotland.
You've got Cliff here. He says, "Say it louder, Dave." He's either hard of hearing or he agrees with you.
I feel like I'm shouting and talking too much as he is.
No, that's why you're here. That's why I wanted you on. You got so much to say and so very well at saying it. Ellis, what do you think to that? Because I think it is a question that people have differing opinions on. But I tend to agree with Dave. But I do like the idea of Tierney playing because he carried us. I mean, for about a year and a half, he carried us. He was by far our best player.
Yeah, I know. I agree to an extent with Dave that it is difficult or probably a mistake of Arteta to try and get someone who can't play. Zinchenko plays centre mid for Ukraine. Sorry, my thing closed down. Zinchenko played centre mid for Ukraine, so he's got experience there. He's very capable of playing that inverted fullback role, and that just isn't the way that Tierney plays. And like Dave says, to ask him to try and play that, you're highlighting his weaknesses. He has, I think, missing him against, was it West Ham that we had to play Tierney over Zinchenko through as he did a tight groin, I believe. And yeah, he made a few mistakes. He tried to play it, and it's just not his game. The way he works is overlapping, getting balls into the box, running, and that's how Tierney plays, and that's how you can get the best out of him. And I think, again, I feel like we're sort of turning this into a sort of an Arteta bashing podcast, and I want to try and avoid that if I can.
We all love Arteta, and we love what he's doing.
Yeah, we'll have to praise him a bit more.
We just need to find something to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, we just sit here for an hour going, "Oh, he's great, isn't he? He's brilliant. Oh, I love him. I love him more."
But yeah, it's just, I think he has shown, and obviously his lacking flexibility tactic-wise and making us play the same way, the same formation, has got us to where we are now. So I shouldn't really criticise him too much. But sometimes, like Dave has mentioned, you have to be a bit flexible. You have to adapt to the curveballs that have been thrown at you. Losing Saliba, having Holding on. If Zinchenko isn't fit or isn't available, having Tierney. You need to be able to play a different way. You need to be able to try and not expose people's weaknesses and highlight their strengths. And I think potentially Arteta has made a mistake with that, with both Holding and Tierney, but maybe I'm being hypercritical.
And obviously he's been incredibly unfortunate to lose Saliba and Tomiyasu in the same game. I mean, we all know, I assume, that had Tomiyasu been fit, he would have been playing, and Ben White would have probably moved to right centre back, and we would not be in this situation. And you can blame the club for not having the squad depth. You can blame the club for not playing Kieran, but he's a left footer, so I don't think that would have changed anything. I just think it's incredibly unfortunate that the injuries we've had have been two key defenders. You know, in the early part of the season, we were losing Jesus we thought would be a huge problem. It wasn't, because it didn't really affect us at the key end of the pitch where we need to stop conceding goals. You know, right now we're not having a problem scoring goals. We've got a problem keeping them out. So it's obviously highlighted more because you've got two key defenders missing rather than one. Yeah,
I don't want to make excuses, but if you look at how many titles Man City have won in that period when it was just Liverpool and Man City fighting it out, the one time Liverpool won it, I'm pretty sure Virgil van Dijk played every single Premier League game. Salah probably the same. Jordan Henderson. Those are key players. If they at any point lost Virgil van Dijk, then they'd probably be in a similar situation where they just missed out on a couple of points, or City would have caught them instead of winning the league when they did. So it is, like you say, it's really unfortunate, and it's doubly unfortunate that the cover for Saliba has been impacted to the fact that Tomiyasu is also out. I think what it highlights and what Arteta can do, whatever the outcome at the end of the season, is go and say, we need a bit more money. This squad isn't capable to push on all fronts, especially when we get to Champions League football. We need a lot more bodies there, and we need quality there as well, not just.
And finishing second in the league, not only will the club back him, or first in the league, hopefully, but in the top two, he will be backed. But also, players will want to come. You know,
I think potentially
not that we've ever had problems signing good players, but we're on the top table again, aren't we? So
I think potentially there is that other view that you can have. If we do finish second, the players we do sign are going to be like, oh, I can be that man that adds that little bit extra. Like Declan Rice might be thinking, if they finish second, I can be the one that shows up that midfield and be that bit of extra to push them over the title, and I'll be lauded the hero, the last piece of the jigsaw to win the league. So even if
I think you have just predicted the future quite accurately there, Ellis. I think he will come, and I think you're right. Yeah.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
So, coming on from what Ellis has said there, Dave, do you think this has highlighted some of the players that Arteta won't be keeping next season? Now that we'll be going up and playing a huge jump from playing in the Europa League to playing in the Champions League. Do you see lots of people not being here at the beginning of next season?
Well, I think we have a collective fan base scratching head at Emile Smith-Rowe situation. I don't think I'm alone in that, because I don't think there will be too many Arsenal fans who would have started Vieira over Smith-Rowe or Jorginho, for example. I mean, let's not remember, it was 18 months ago that Emile Smith-Rowe was, pretty much him and Saka saved our season 2 years ago, and he was he was in the team. The fan base was absolutely panic stricken that Villa were interested. He was given the number 10 shirt to keep him, and so on and so on. Now I can accept the fact that Martinelli's taken his place, because obviously he's a generational talent. But I still thought Emile Smith-Rowe would get more football than he has. Now he's fit, and Arteta is saying nice things about him, but he's not backing any of those nice things up with any actions, because I know, and I think we all know, that Smith-Rowe's been fit for a fair old while now, and he's not getting any minutes, which I find unusual. So I would say Emile Smith-Rowe is definitely one who, even if the club don't want to sell him, might well be asking to be sold, which I think is a shame. So I think that's a definite possibility. And I think there are a few others. Obviously, there's a decision to make around Balogun in the summer. I think Holding's probably come to the end of his tenure. I think Tierney will be saying, what's the situation next year? Because if Arteta's looking to sign a cover left back, he's obviously going to sign one who is the successor to Zinchenko, and he obviously doesn't see Tierney as that. So I think Tierney, I think Smith-Rowe definitely. The interesting one for me is Reiss Nelson. Reiss Nelson seems to have leapfrogged over Smith-Rowe, certainly. So I think Reiss Nelson, obviously being offered a new contract, is a good thing. But I think certainly Smith-Rowe, Holding, Tierney. I'm probably missing a few, but yeah, I think there'll be a few going out, and I think three or four big additions will be coming in, because Partey and Xhaka are both 30, 31 next year. So I think we're looking at two. Right. I don't think Jorginho is a long-term signing. He's only got an 18-month contract, so he'll be there for experience off the bench. Probably ahead of Big Mo. next season. But yeah, so I think a couple of midfield signings. So yeah, there will be a few. But I think the one that we'll all be upset about is Smith Rowe. If he goes and shines somewhere else, I think we'll all be pretty upset.
I wouldn't let him go. You need when you're competing on 4 fronts next season, we're going to need him.
I know, but we need him now, but he's not been selected. That's my point, Danny. I agree with you, but Arteta doesn't, obviously.
Is there some similarities to when Martinelli came back and we're going, why isn't he playing? Why isn't he starting? And this was going on for ages, a couple of seasons ago. We thought
he had about 20 games under his belt, and he was an exciting talent. Smith Rowe is 2 or 3 years older. He's got experience in Germany. He's got experience in the Championship. It's not the same situation. I mean, Smith Rowe's already proven he's an England international. Martinelli wasn't 2 years ago. That was just the fans wanting to see him because he was exciting and we weren't doing very well. And I was one of those fans, of course. But I don't think it's the same situation.
Yeah, it's worrying. Ellis, what do you think about that? And can you believe Big Bob Holding's only 27? He's been at the club for 30 years and he's still only 27. How the hell is that?
His hair is 2.7.
160 games he's played for the Arsenal. That's why I love Big Bob. I'd keep him in the club anyway because he's a centre-back. He loves the club. He knows the way we play. And if he's happy next season to get the cup games and the early stages of the Champions League and be 7th choice backup, centre-back or whatever he would be, what's your thoughts about players being here next season? Listen, do any of them thought of any of them leaving like me and Dave with Tierney and ESR leaving make you a little bit sad?
Well, firstly, I think obviously no offence to you guys, but you've experienced this, but it's very depressing talking about players and saying they've been here ages and they're 27 and you're a fair few years older than that. I remember being back there. I remember being that age, and I remember being younger and looking at the players in the team. But now it's getting to that time in my life where I'm older than most football players, and that makes me very sad.
I thought you were in your late 20s.
I'm 31.
31. Remember you were 31.
On the end of my footballing career, I'm never going to make it now. The dream's over.
Xhaka and Partey veteran status.
Yeah.
When I was 31, we just bought Seaman, Linnigan, Limpar, and we were about to go on and win the league in 91. God.
Well, hopefully the same.
No, that was 21 then. No, 2001. We were about to go and win the league in 2001 too. There you go, 10 years off. Go on. So what players do you think are going to be out the window in the transfer window in the summer?
It's going to sound very repetitive. There's not really anyone that either of you two have highlighted that I think will probably stay. I think for Tierney's sake and for Arsenal's sake, he probably needs to go if we're going to continue to try and force him into a position or a way of playing that doesn't suit him. And it's absolutely pointless. You might as well recruit some money for him, whether that be 30 million or whatever the price is that's been quoted from at the moment, and then put that into someone like Dave said, up and coming, who's going to eventually succeed Zinchenko and have some cover for Zinchenko because even he has his own injury problems. Again, completely agree with in terms of Dave additions. Xhaka and Partey, they're getting any younger, and Jorginho is also old as well, as is Elneny. So we're going to have to bring someone in, hopefully Declan Rice or Casado or someone of that ilk that is young,
or both,
or both. That'd be nice. I think I can see Holden staying. I don't think there's going to be a lot of takers for him personally. But there might be, but if you're Holding, he just seems like a very good guy, a very Arsenal man who's just happy to sort of be there, and he will still get minutes regardless. If we bring in another centre back, I think he'll still.
You reckon?
I think so. If we get any more injuries, then he'll come on. In terms of depending on what sort of draw we get and where we finish in the league, where we are in the Champions League and the group stages, he might get some games there. Obviously, the League Cup and FA Cup. But again, for him personally, he might decide that he needs to move. I don't know where he sort of fits. He is obviously a good football player, and again, I don't want to jump on him at all, like people have been on social media. But I don't think if you took him out of our squad and put him in any of the traditional top 6, I don't think he really gets in any of them, to be fair.
No, I think if you went to a team that played like a 4-4-2 or even a 4-2-3-1, but with a keeper that wasn't asked to distribute from the back, and basically he was playing with his, back to goal, defending, heading, clearing, in that type of team, he would be probably their club captain.
Yeah, I think he would probably
he would be outstanding, a team right now that's struggling at the bottom of the league, but yeah, he's not. The other one I forgot to mention, which is not really necessarily a sale, but I would like to see Vieira go on loan rather than stay, because I think he just needs to play every week and get battle hardened in British football. So he needs to go to a lower Premier League side, or someone competing at the top of the Championship. Go and play for a Burnley or a Leicester or whoever, and just get battle hardened, because he's obviously got talent. But I just think you see most Arsenal players when they're not playing, you don't see them for, and they come back, they've put on a stone in muscle, and you see they've been through a program, and that's happened a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. You remember when Walcott came back from his cruise ship, when Bellerin came back from his cruise ship, they were different shapes, and they'd been through a program. I haven't seen any change in Vieira since the first time I saw him at the beginning of the season, and I just think, obviously there are slight players that, like Trossard's a slight player, but technically he's just sensational. Vieira isn't at that level yet, so I think he needs to get regular football somewhere. He's going to tough it out, and let's see how good he can be.
I do worry about him. Obviously, the Arteta Edu sort of reign, we've seen a lot of good players come in. We've also seen some players that haven't quite cut the mustard, haven't quite made it. Sambi Lokonga, who's on loan at Crystal Palace. Tavares, who's on.
He's another one who might be out in the summer. Sorry,
so they probably are going to go. I can't see Tavares or Sambi Lokonga coming back and making any sort of meaningful contribution to.
Maitland-Niles, we know, is going as well. He said that, hasn't he?
Pepe, is his contract up at the end of this, or is he? I don't know. But I think we'll see a lot of those French players go.
Maybe he's got another year on his contract, Pepe. Actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he signed.
Well, Mark will also come back as well. He seems to be doing quite well for Norwich, and he's very young. He'll be back in the squad.
He's another good one, but I think sometimes it seems that Arteta wants to buy a player, keep him at the club for a season, and try and integrate him with the team and training, and then giving him games, and then the second season loan them out, and then that's when he makes his decision on whether he's going to keep them or not. And I do think that quite a few of the players that we've got, like you were saying, Tavares, Lokonga, Vieira, that's a lot of money's worth of players that isn't working. And I think the owners, although they have backed Arteta in the transfer market, are going to go, we can't go and buy another 3 or 4 players that are going to be either short-term things like Trossard and Jorginho might be, or the other ones you're just going to hope, because to spend 35 million on Vieira, I mean, he was magnificent for Porto last season. I think he got like 14 assists in the league. And you see sometimes he does do really good long balls or crossfield balls or passes. He does have it in him, but it looks like he's looking around him the whole time like Bambi going, I'm not going to get clapped because I've got little pigeon legs and these are going to get broken if I don't get rid of the ball quickly. And that maybe forces him into making quick decisions. So,
also got a decision to make in the summer on, well, not only on Balogun, but also on Charlie Patino for the next season as well.
The Blackpool legend. He's even got his own song at Blackpool. But I think that's
something that Charlie invited me to go and see him because
he was signing some of your books, wasn't he?
Yeah, he said I'll come to a London game. He said Luton or Reading. They were both in sort of February time, so I chose Reading because it's closest to where I live. And drove all the way up there, and it was only the second game of the whole season where he didn't play at all. he was on the bench. Reading won, Blackpool lost. He was on the bench. He didn't come on. He was going to come on, I think, with about 78 minutes, and then someone got injured in a different position, so they had to change a defender. I sat with his mum and dad the whole game. Didn't get to see him play again.
Did you get a wave though, or anything during the game?
I got a thanks for coming message from him.
He's got a bright future though, hasn't he? Who would you compare him to, or say he's like in previous years?
Jack. Yeah, Jack and Jack. Yeah, technically sensational player, amazing passing range, and he's beefed up so much at Blackpool. You look at him now; he's just so much stronger and broader than he was when he made those 2 appearances last year. Whether he's going to be in the Premier League squad next year is debatable, but let's see what happens in pre-season, because I think if he shows well in early pre-season, it might influence whether they make one central midfield signing or 2.
Have you got any idea what country he's going to declare for? Because he's obviously born in England, but with a name like Patino, that doesn't say, is it Italian or something?
No, his dad's Spanish. No, he's got a dual passport. Obviously, he's played for England at every level so far. And current thinking certainly I think is England, but yeah, you're right. He does have the option.
I think speaking of transfers, there is going to come a time where we are going to lose a player that we don't want to lose. The last few seasons, it's been how do we shift all this deadwood, trying to flog players that no one really wants, trying to get as much money, or in some cases just paying off their contract so we can get rid of their wages. But I think probably this season there is going to be, whether it is Emile Smith-Rowe or someone else, could be potentially Balogun. I know he's not really made his name in the Arsenal team like Smith-Rowe has, but I think we are going to probably have to lose someone that the fans like and don't want to see go. But it's part of that progression, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and it's unfortunate. It's a massive decision the club have got to make on Balogun, because despite what he's done, it is a very different league, and he's playing in a different setup, to the way Arteta plays. He's definitely got a feeling for the club, and I'm sure he'd love to come, but the club's made quite a big commitment, and a statement giving Eddie a 5-year contract at $100,000 a week. And Eddie hasn't let anyone down, really, to be honest.
No. And I think if you're Balogun and you're coming off the back of the season he's had, he's going to want insurances, and I don't think he's going to want to go on another loan.
And if the likes of AC Milan have been linked, and is it Frankfurt or one of the German sides?
Leipzig, I think.
40 million pound for a player that's not played in the Premier League. It's very tempting, isn't it? Very tempting.
Are we worried about Saliba, Dave? Because
I am. Yeah.
Because the Ornsteino tweeted yesterday that he's still out injured. I think he needs an operation on his back, and they said they're no closer to him signing a new contract. And the way he's played this season and last season for Marseille, he is going to be one of the hottest property centre backs, because a decent centre back nowadays at that age they're like gold dust, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think there's any question that he loves being at Arsenal. You can see it, can't you? I mean, the camaraderie in this particular squad is right up there with the best I've seen. The body language between the players and everything he says on social media. But if we don't win the league, you're right. There's going to be some very, very, very big clubs, talking to his agent, ahead of him, at the same time, or ahead of Arsenal doing so again. So it's a tricky one, but it's one of those situations where you just hope for a bit of loyalty. We're supporting him right now, but
is there such thing as loyalty in modern football?
Equally, we can look back at perhaps he might feel that we didn't give him support and loyalty. You just don't know, do you? Because you see all the French press interviews previous years where he was saying this, he was saying that, and then he come back this season and everything he says about, Arteta was in touch with me all the time, Arsenal were always in touch with me at every loan. So what's come out this season from his camp is very different than what potentially came out when he was in France. So, we don't really know the situation, but I think he could be part of something really, really special if he stays. So we do need to get it done. We definitely need to get it done.
What about you, Ellis? I mean, if they can throw $100,000 a week at Eddie, who for me is never going to make it at Arsenal, he's I mean, they're protecting their investment, I suppose, but he is not $100,000 a week player. But there again, when we all know that when you buy a player on a free transfer, then they get much higher wages, like Sol Campbell when we got him from Spurs, got him on a free transfer, massive wages. So I can see why they've done it with Eddie, but. What do you think is going to happen with Saliba? Because he is a rock. He is the centre pin of that defence. And for me, he's more important than Gabriel. And he is going to be one of the best defenders in the world for the next decade at the rate he's going.
Well, yeah, he's transformed our defence. Looking at the win rate with him, I think it's gone with him 78%, without him 40%. We've conceded less shots on target. Our expected goals against was under 1. It's now 1.8, so it's almost double. We're conceding almost double the big chances with him. I think there's some stats on Sky Sports News as well showing that he'd only been dribbled past 3 times at whatever point in the season that stat was shown. I feel like he is the key to that defence. He is that moment that has sort of notched us up that level to be title contenders, to be in the position we are now, and to lose him would be devastating, really. I wasn't worried, but a lot of people in our WhatsApp chat, obviously Dave sharing his concerns, has made me think maybe I should be a bit more worried. But I'm relaxed about it now. I think.
Yeah, I'm not massively worried. I mean, I can understand why people are. But.
I think regardless of where we finish this season, be it second or first, I think even if we still finish second, I think he's enjoyed his time enough to want to knock it on. He's still a young player. Let's not forget that. He's still got plenty of time to get his big money move to Real Madrid or PSG or even Man City. But I'm hoping that would never happen.
Well, that's one of the most exciting things, isn't it? Because if we're buying a Caicedo and a Rice, let's just say, who are both under 25, and they are replacements for Partey and Xhaka who are 31. The average age of our team is going to be ridiculously low, but it's going to have a great depth of experience as well, because this year we needed Partey and Saka because of their experience and because of the old heads in the young team. You've got Jesus and Zinchenko, their experience, but they're only mid-20s. So we've got two players who are wrong side of 30. If we change those for the two that everyone's expecting us to change it for, we're not going to have anyone who's starting for their Arsenal who's over 26. And yet they have incredible depth. And so if I'm Saliba, you're right, really, actually, Ellis. And I'm looking at my teammates. I'm looking at Odegaard, who's 23. I'm looking at Saka, who's 22. I'm looking at Martinelli, who's 21. This is incredible. If we can keep this core together and add 2 or 3 top draw players. Because Ben White, he's had an incredible season. Incredible season. How old's Ben White? 23, 24?
I don't know, 24.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
I think it might rumble on into the transfer window, and I think, like you say, a lot will depend on who we bring in. If we can get certain big deals over the line early on the season, it's going to be a much more convincing argument for Saliba to stay at the club. If we don't, it might rumble on a bit longer. But I'm not too worried. Obviously, he's one of the 3 of those contracts that are running out, which was Saka and Martinelli, and they looked like, well, Martinelli's done and dusted. And is Saka done, or is that?
He verbally said he's going to sign at the end of the season.
Yeah. So I think he'll be the 3rd one, and then it will be looking at signing down some of the other players that are getting close to that. But I'm not too worried now, and I feel like because you're not worried, Dave, I can be less worried again. There we go. We hashed that out, and I feel better.
Skiggy has just said, can we talk about ESR? We have done that. Go back about 10 minutes. Our mate Steph has put, Crazy Jens Lehmann has just tweeted, apparently we won the league 19 years ago today at the shithole.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. Amazing.
And
Phil says Ben White is his player of the season. He's 25 and his birthday's in October. Mr. Waffle says Saliba is effortlessly world class. I hope we don't lose him. See, that's the other thing we've got to think about, because under Wenger we had all these great players and he was building something, and once he let one go, then it was every season one would go, and Arteta cannot afford to let anybody one of our best players go, because then all the big clubs will go, well, we only need to do this, that, or the other to tempt them away.
Interestingly, when we were losing all those players and not getting contract extensions done, with Ozil and with Walcott and with Alexis Sanchez and all these players back in that, 7-8 years ago, when we came through that period, the hierarchy, which automatically, admittedly is different now, when it was Gazidis and Rowe were saying, we're not going to let this happen again. If a player gets to the last 12 months and won't sign, we sell. So we're at that situation with Saliba, aren't we? 1 year to go. So if the club said 2 or 3 years ago, we're not going back to those days, we're going to be strong about this. We're the Arsenal. And if somebody's not going to extend in the last 12 months, then we're not going to have this winding down and let them go for free again. So that's interesting, because I don't think we'll see us. It'll be interesting to test their mettle, if you like. If Saliba doesn't sign by the end of this transfer window, if he's got 1 year left, will they let it go to January? If a player of that quality, you think they probably would, but they said in the recent past, they won't do that anymore.
You just look back at some of the players that left. Anelka, he was quite a thick person, and then I think that ruined his career because he became a journeyman. Hleb said it was the worst decision he ever made. And who was one of the other ones? Petit, Vieira, Manu Petit. He regretted going because he went and he was back in Chelsea a year later. Overmars,
Nasri.
Yeah, he was never loved, and he even went back to Barcelona. He wasn't loved there. And Overmars, when he won absolutely nothing in the 4 seasons he was with Barcelona. And so when you look at Saliba, you can see speech bubbles above his head with him thinking, mathematical equations. He is a very intelligent player. Whereas you see the speech bubbles above Gabriel's head, and you can just see some cartoon playing, or Speedy Gonzalez running off the edge of a cliff or something like that. He doesn't fill me with confidence. But I remember watching Saliba playing when he was for Marseille and when he was back at Saint Etienne. And he would do 100 passes a game from centre back. Meanwhile, back at the Arsenal that time, we have centre backs that are doing 20, 30 passes a game. And his accuracy with the passes and his reading of the game, and only to be 22 years old and already 8 caps for France. And that bloke has the world at his feet, and he's intelligent. And just look at him. And he will have to look at this, like you were saying, and go look at our players around him and go, there is something here. I could be here for a decade and then go and have a move back to Spain or wherever he might want to go when he's 32. And then, like Ramsdale, I was saying the other day, Ramsdale was he 23, 24? Mm. He could still be playing at Arsenal in 15 years' time, the way goalkeepers and players.
And he actually says he sees that, and he sees his future. Yeah.
Not that his dad wants him there. Does his dad like rugby or something? He doesn't like football, does he? I saw the videos. Is she all right, El?
Yeah, she's fine. We call it a crack square, but it's like a little muzzy square that she sleeps with, and she'd managed to chuck out the cot. So I turned to the side, and she's stood at the cot screaming at it. So I've given it to her now, and she's just gone.
I've never heard of a muzzy. I take it it's muslin.
Yeah, it's like a little it's not a big muslin. It's like a little tiny square.
It's like muzzy, is it? It's like muzzy, is it, Danny?
Ah, there you go. I went round to see Sexy Frank. And Sexy Frank's lit list, middle one. She come down and she had 9 of them. Then her sister went upstairs and got another 2, and then she got another 3. She got 13 muzzies, and all covered in spit and dribble and chewed. I've never heard of that before. They didn't even let Sean have a bed until she was 14.
Well, we didn't have a dummy, so it's like the equivalent, I think.
Anybody got any questions? Because we're going to go for about another 5 minutes. Anyone got any questions? Do let us know. And then put them in the chat and we shall answer them. Is there anything we haven't covered? Do you want to talk a little bit about the Man City game and how we think it's going to go? I know you've already talked, Dave, about the kind of lineup you'd like to go, but how do you realistically?
Well, I didn't say I'd necessarily like it.
Yeah. I'd be happy if you'd be okay if they did.
I wouldn't be upset. Yeah, I don't want to see. Put it this way, I don't want to see the same starting 11 and the same formation. With the injuries we've got, I do think he's going to have to make an adjustment. I think if Xhaka's not fit, he has to play one of Trossard or Jorginho. I mean, logically, it would be Jorginho. But I think if he's not going to go with a back 3, I would rather he went back to the old 4-2-3-1 and played a pivot, Partey and Jorginho together and have more of a solid base, in front of the back 4. And then just let those front 4, do their thing. We've got fast players. We can hit them on the break. But I think we just need to have a more solid platform. So if Holding's playing in a back 4, I don't have a problem with that, but I'd rather see a double pivot in front rather than just single party with 2 8s. So I'd rather see 4-2-3-1 or a 3. I think either of those will make us slightly more solid than the current setup. However well it served us with different players. So,
but what do you think the end result is going to be? Are we going to be happy gooners this time tomorrow night? Or no, it would just be into the second half. 10 o'clock tomorrow night.
It's the sort of thing, you wouldn't surprise you with this team, would it? It wouldn't surprise you. I was up there for the FA Cup game. And in that game we played, we rested 4 or 5 players. They played a full strength side and they scored against the run of play. They had a good period at the start of the second half and they scored. We generally outplayed them for long periods. So we just need to remember that. I know they've got better and better. They are a juggernaut of a team. But, an early goal. If we can get an early goal and give ourselves something to defend, who knows? Anything's possible in football.
But do we go there with an attacking mentality, or do we go there and go, can we try and hold them to a draw? Because I think that could be a disaster.
I would go attacking, but as I say, with a more solid base.
Ellis?
Yeah, I think you're right. It'll end a disaster if we sit there and try and hold them. I don't think we can go all out attack, but I completely agree with Dave. I would like a double pivot, a bit more sort of solidarity there. I think the cracks and the pressure has started to show a bit in the last few fixtures, and just solidify that up a bit, make that a bit more safer, make that a bit more sound. I think the job that we have Partey doing is phenomenal, and the fact that he's gone so long through the season, not made that many errors, and continued to do it on his own, is amazing, but there's a slight different type of pressure, different atmosphere, different strain in this run-in than there has been at the start of the season for the rest of the season. So I think holding Partey, everyone just needs some support. I think we need to, this game, we're going to have to try and attack him because we can't sit back and just let them come at us. I think there's going to be an interesting moment. There's no Ake. He's their only injury they've got, but he's been one of the solids for them for the majority of the season. And to have Saka on that side running at whoever they decide to put there, it's going to be interesting.
Very
Again, people have said that Saka's been out of form, but he's that player that can produce a bit of magic. I don't think he's out of form. I just think potentially with losing Saliba there, you've had a bit less distribution down the right-hand side because it's easier for Rob Holding, being right-footed, to turn and pass it to Gabriel off that way rather than try and pass it out.
Partey's been having to drop too deep to get the ball from, he's not trusting of Holding's distribution possibly, and he's dropping deeper. So there's been more of a disconnect between Partey and the offensive side. That's why having Jorginho there would help, because whatever Jorginho's frailties, lack of pace, whatever, he's technically, he doesn't give the ball away. He never gives a pass away. So what we've been lacking in recent games is ball retention in pressure moments. That's what Jorginho does. That's why he was the best player in the European Championship final, because he never ever gives the ball away under pressure. And we need that. And
essentially, we've been getting Partey to do that job on his own anyway. So just having to cover for his quote unquote lack of pace for Jorginho is not going to be any different to being there on his own.
I don't think we want. Also, Jesus has been dropping too deep and getting involved, which is effectively at the other end of the pitch. We want Jesus to stay in the final third.
That's something that I was thinking about personally. From you mentioned Jesus, it's reminded me him and Zinchenko. How do either of you two think that's going to happen? Zinchenko seems to me a very emotional guy. Was it the FA Cup one when they came over and they slapped him on the head and he seemed to get a bit irate with that? Do you think this moment in the season, again, I keep mentioning the word pressure, but not just pressure, that to try and show Man City, you shouldn't have sold me. I need to show you that I can do it. Do you think that's going to have a negative impact or a positive impact on the way they play?
If there is a factor, and I think you're right, Ellis, I think Arteta needs to have a very stern word with him, because however good he's been for us offensively, he has been a liability on 2 or 3 occasions in those last 3 games where he's tried to do too much in a position where he didn't need to do it. So if you think, Ellis, that he's in that mindset of I need to show them, then that is a danger, because he does sometimes turn into danger when he doesn't need to. When the right ball is not necessarily Rowe's end, but it's certainly forward and out of trouble, he can turn back into trouble. So he doesn't need to prove anything to Man City. He's won 5 championships there, so he doesn't need to. But it's a concern. So hopefully Arteta will put his arm around him and have a quiet word on that subject.
He does need to calm down a bit, because he does get so passionate about it all. But I think they'll be fine. They're professionals and they know what to do. But
it'll be fine.
Easy.
The Jesus thing of him dropping deep, it does. I mean, that is his game, but we can't afford to have the fulcrum of our attack dropping back behind the 10. You don't do that. There's no need for it. There's players, Odegaard players there. Don't you worry. We'll give you the ball. You stay up front and you score the goals, because we've seen before the last game he had 4 goals in 3 games. He can do it. And right. Let's do some.
He's led by example the last few games, Odegaard, hasn't he? When he's been, when push comes to shove, he stood up very well as captain.
Sean's mum was asking how they played. No, it wasn't. Oh, it was Canadian Jeff. We WhatsApp each other messages. My one was 22 minutes for him today, and I was saying the way to describe the game against Southampton was Arsenal played the entire game like it was the 90th minute of a cup final, and then you could see at the end of it they were absolutely broken.
There seems to be a few people on the questions and in the private chat saying that it's formal that Saliba's out for the rest of the season now. Have I missed this? Because I mean, I was at the press conference earlier.
Nobody really knows.
But 3 or 4 people have said it. Yeah, that it seems, has that come out of the club this evening? I don't know. I haven't seen, because obviously we've been chatting, but
I think they got rid of everybody who lets information out of the club, didn't they? So
one of the other things that I saw on social media today, which is not crazy, because we used to do it with El Neni, we did it with Gilberto, is I wonder, it's too late now to try it. I would have tried it, but I reckon Partey could do a job at centre back, no problem. You know, if you had Xhaka fit, you could have Xhaka or Jorginho playing ahead of Partey. You know, we used to drop Gilberto Silva in there. We used to drop Alex Song in there. If you're a good footballer and you've got the height and stature, which he has, I think he could probably do a job. As I say, I'm not suggesting we try it tomorrow night, but maybe we could have tried it in, like we did with El Neni used to play there, or Xhaka used to play there sometimes in Europa League games. There's times where we could have tried it, and it may be something for next season.
He'd certainly help with the distribution.
Yeah,
from there, and they're taking the ball under pressure that Rob unfortunately just doesn't have.
It's too late now. The other thing is, the other one we could put him a right back, you know, which is what we used to do with Ray Parker.
I think that's a bit too much running up and down for someone like Partey. I think that's a bit too much to put on him.
Yeah, but if we were 1-up with 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, different story.
We'll put 10 men in defence at that point, but yeah.
Like you do in Football Manager. Everybody in defence. Right, questions. Formerly knows who asked about Saliba being out. Are we panicking? We've already covered that a little bit. Mr. Bob Bleck says, one for both of you. Do we loan Balogun out next season? If we do, how about Brighton, Dave? What do you think?
I don't think Balogun's going to have any interest, or his agents about being on loan. He wants to play for Arsenal, or he wants to move, will be my guess. So yeah, it's a great suggestion, and if he's happy with it. But when you've scored over 20 goals in a top European league, I don't think you're going to go on loan to a lesser team, maybe. But I can't see it.
No, I agree.
I think he plays for us, or he's sold.
Ellis?
Yeah, I agree. I can't see him going out on loan again. I think, and again, he's either going to play or he's going to be.
So Brighton, we're going to nick your best player. You can have Balogun on loan. How's that?
I think what we should do is sell him and add a buyback clause or a very high percentage sell-on clause just to cover all bases, really.
Okie dokie. Final question from formerly knows Ellis. How hard will you laugh if a bus stop in Fulham signs Poch as their new manager?
I think he means Stamford Bridge. Do you know something? Well, it sounds like it's advanced talk, so it sounds like he is going to be the next Chelsea manager, but it doesn't worry me at all, I have to say.
That club is in such a disarray that
basket case.
Yeah, I don't really care who they sign. They could sign Pep Guardiola, and I still think that would go to shit.
It comes back to that. There was that thing where Potter was saying it's like being in school with there's too many kids for the classroom. He was talking to players who were in the corridor who had to shout because they couldn't fit everyone in the change room when he was talking to them in training. Like the people. They were queuing down the corridor with glasses to the wall sort of thing. It's ridiculous. There's the first team squad and they're all internationals. It's just an incredible situation.
I said this. Go on.
Sorry, going back to Chelsea. Keeping on Chelsea. Sorry, they're obviously going to sell some players. Is there anyone in that squad that any of you two would be interested in taking?
Right back.
Yes, Mason Mount all day. Perfect Xhaka replacement.
I
know I'm in the minority. Arsenal fans don't like Mason Mount. I just simply don't understand it. Fantastic player. There you go. Russ is just, would you be in for Mason Mount? Yes, I would. And I'll tell you another reason. Here's my conspiracy. Saka loves Declan Rice. Declan Rice loves Saka. Mason Mount and Declan Rice are best friends.
They are.
They do everything together. So there's a double incentive. Get the two of them together.
The only issue with that I have is there is rumours of the wage demands that he had at Chelsea. Whether we'd be able to match that.
That's why they don't want him, isn't it?
Well, you have to bear in mind, because he's in his last year of his contract, he's not going to cost what he's worth. He's not going to cost more than 25, 30 million. He's not going to cost.
I suppose you're spreading that cost out, aren't you? Then.
But yeah, I mean, it's a pipe dream. I think there's too many other players we're linked with, but there have been rumours, though, haven't there? So who knows?
What was yours, Danny? Did you say
the right back? Is it Reece James?
It's very injury prone.
Oh, yeah, but he's injured now for the rest of the season. He's out. Yeah. But I just think that is a magnificent.
He does look good.
He's not better than Ben White, but he's just a wonderful right back. He reminds me so much of who would it be? Maybe the way Lauren gets forward, but he can defend. It's just magnificent. Plus, he's got great hair and he's a good-looking chap. So that's all.
We're talking about Ben White now or Reece James?
Both of them, actually. I can be if people like that kind of thing. It's like Ross Morgan put Reece James made out of Lego. Well, they brought him back too soon, didn't
they? Much like Arteta's hair.
Yeah. I thought when people said that, I always thought it was because they thought Arteta was bald and he wore Lego hair. I mean,
Click on.
So good. He's not bald. It's yeah, he's not at all. So
someone just said, "Will we take Lukaku in the message questions there?"
Formerly no, so Lukaku, absolutely not. No, because we'll buy him for 80 million after loaning back to Inter Milan. He'll have the shirt 80 with the number 80 on the back of his shirt. One final quick one. Sky has asked loads of questions that we keep missing out. Skeg says, how about James Maddison Ellis? What do you reckon? Would you have him? Because I bloody wouldn't.
Loved him at Norwich, but now I wouldn't take him now. I think the opportunity for him to come to Arsenal was when we were going for Odegaard. We have Odegaard.
I think he might go to Newcastle, and I think he'll do very well there.
Could definitely see that happening.
Newcastle are a force to be reckoned with next season, whatever happens.
Talking of Newcastle, did you see the assist that Willock?
Joe Willock.
Out from the halfway line, the outside of his right foot, into the path of the on-running Isaac, I think it was. And then later on, he had a shot and hit the bar. And I only watched Smash of the Day too to see all the goals conceded by Spurs. Absolutely hilarious.
Funny thing is, I could understand why he sold Joe Willock at the time, because he was always playing 4-2-3-1, and Joe Willock was never a 10, but he was never in a double pivot. So he needed us to be playing a three-man midfield, and it didn't look like we were ever going to do it. Yeah. The season after we sold him, that's all we did. So the left 8 role, which we're throwing in Vieira in a key game of the season, that could have been Joe Willock. But hey, history.
He's doing better than both his brothers, who decided to leave the Arsenal and go elsewhere, and they're now both playing in the Championship and League One. So that'll be a warning to you. Don't ever leave the Arsenal.
Chris is a good player at QPR, just who fit long, and he barely sees the ball.
I think they're all decent players in their own right. Right then, people, that's it. An hour and 10 minutes. If people want to come and find you on the wonderful thing that is Twitter, what is your username?
GoonerDave66.
Oh, there you go. And if people want to go and buy any of Dave's books, you just go to Legends Publishing, or you can get them from the club shop. Just look for a bloke sneakily signing the books, wearing a cagoule and a hat and a scarf, so no one knows it's him. Ellis, it's nice to have you back. One of the few members of ABW that are actually available to do podcasts nowadays. I think you're the only one who's been on in about 6 months, 8 months, something like that. It feels like it. When will we expect you again now that you're all settled?
Tuesdays are normally good. So this night, when Silla's on a night shift, we have regular shifts now. So a Tuesday night, every other Tuesday, I might be able to frequent this podcast a bit more. But we'll see.
Mr. Boblex is straight in with the hashtag Carpenter out, Carpenter fired. Right. So thank you very much, Dave. It's been brilliant. Ellis, you've been wonderful. And thank you very much for everybody watching. We'll be back tomorrow night right after the game. We have an outro as well. You knew Steve Lord who would, and Dave Goonerholic quite well, didn't you? You definitely knew Dave. I have made an outro that we play, and it is the both of those two have excerpts from the shows that people didn't hear, but before or after the show. And so I'm going to click this. It's 25 seconds long, and then I'll see you two when the show ends. So don't go anywhere just yet. Right, everybody, thank you very much, and goodbye.
As soon as I scored that goal, I was fucking livid. Get down, dog. Splendid business.
He nearly caught the bloody thing. What are you talking about?
So I've just eaten a full quiche. Well, you don't often see them at it. So when you see them in the supermarket, they need to be swagged, microwaved immediately, and get the brown sauce on and bosh, Bob's your uncle.
Never in.